Oh, I see that screen sharing working. All right. All right, so we're going to switch gears. And I really don't know how you guys are going to grab hold of this. So what I decided to do is make this somewhat of an intro to a future lesson. The objective is to see if you guys can make a link between the Father's Word, how DNA works, and then see if we can combine that into seeing how it works in our body. Okay? So at some point, if it goes somewhere that you don't understand, let me know. So I kind of covered quite a few scriptures, but a little bit more of commentary only to kind of help bridge the gap just in case there's some issues there. I kind of took out a lot of college ways so that we can all follow along, okay? Let me change the pen. All right. So understanding the DNA of the scriptures, going back to the parent relation of the word. So the objective realistically is to take stuff back to the beginning, right? So I won't go completely to the beginning, but we'll see some remnants of it. And then from that, you're going to see how we're going to build a whole relationship with the Father's word, with his letters, and then us being a light, and then how actually we can see the Father within ourselves. All right, so we'll see how that goes. All right, so 1 John 1:1 says, that which was from the beginning, which we have heard, which we have seen with our eyes, which we have looked upon, and our hands have handled of the word of life. For the life was manifested, and we have seen it, and bear witness, and show unto you that eternal life, which was with the Father and was manifested unto us. What do you guys get out of that? Okay, so it was from the beginning, right? And it was something that you what? You have heard, you have seen with our eyes.
The word was with the Father from the beginning, and showed unto us eternal life, which was with the Father, and it was manifested unto us.
Right.
So the word was life.
Okay. So we're going to see that. We're not going to talk about all of our senses today. We're not going to go over that, but just want you to see that there's going to be a manifestation that's going to come out of this that we're all going to hopefully see together. All right. So what was heard from the beginning was from the word, right? It was something that had an audible, it was very audible, which we'll see a little bit later, that produces energy. Okay. Does anyone know the Hebrew word for energy? All right. You guys, some of us do, but maybe not saw it in that way. It says, we will see this work in the scriptures as well. We are made up of mass and matter, right? Everyone understands what mass and matter is, right? All right, so that produces energy. When we speak of things we hear, we create energy. When we apply correctly, his word is life, is to be manifested and animated in our lives. So we're going to see how that really works. Huh? Nope. But we're going to see, yeah. We're going to see what the word is, and then we're going to see how it works. All right, so let us use Mashiach for a moment. It says, he was said to be the word. Everyone agrees. That this word was heard of in the Tanakh, commonly called the Old Testament. The word then takes on flesh. The flesh now houses and walks out the belief. So now the word now becomes flesh, and now in that flesh, he starts to walk out the word. Okay, so the flesh now becomes the walking word. We will see later that this would be called RNA. Anyone familiar with RNA? I know y'all that went to school did some DNA and some RNA, right? Hallelujah. All right, so we operate in the same manner. We are seeing mass and matter, but his word is unseen. Okay, so it can only be seen in you when you make the word alive in you. So I put, what is matter? So what is matter?
Scientific definition?
Sure.
Anything that takes up space.
Okay. Anything that takes up space. All right. So anything that has mass and occupies space, and it's also called substance. That one with me so far. All right. Now, when we read in Mishnah of Proverbs, it is the esteem of Elohim to conceal a thing, dabar, but the honor of kings is to search out a matter. Same word for matter is dabar, or word. So we're going to see how the Father's word becomes something that is a matter within you. We'll see that later on. It will occupy the space. Well, for some people, it will occupy space for some people. Other people, they have a whole different thing going here. All right, so things that we can see and things we cannot see is made up of mass and matter. This will be very important when dealing with our Creator and how we deal with one another. When I say things seen and unseen, can you tell me what I mean by that? Stuff that is seen and unseen. So,
You're seen.
okay, so we're the mass and matter, we can be seen, right?
And then you have the eyes cannot see.
Okay.
So you have an interaction.
Okay, so things that you can't see, you see the ruach or the spirits, things like that, right? All right, and then how about in this universe? What are some things you can't see outside of wind, things like that? What else can you see?
We can't see spiritual things because those things are beyond our
Oh,
plane.
she's late. Okay.
The spirit, the ruach, we can't see those things. But the matter being the word, occupying space, they work together.
Okay. So what we're going to look at is later on is particles. Can anyone see particles in the air? Okay, but they are there. And they do occupy space, but you can't see it. Right? Is everyone with me so far? All right, so we'll see how that works a little bit later. All right, so Tehillim or Mizmor 33:6 says, by the word of Yahuah were the heavens made, and all the hosts of them by the breath of his mouth. Now, this is going to be very important. And then 2 Peter 3:5 says, for this they willingly are ignorant of, that by the word of Elohim the heavens were of old, and the earth standing out of the water and in the water. So I put, it is the word that brought forth everything. Everyone should agree to that. So I said, think about today, what can words do? Right? So if I tell you what words can do, just remember, by the breath of his mouth. I want you guys to remember that, how things came out. So has everyone seen the breath of his mouth? No, you ain't seen him. Other than what you see, right? But what he did was unseen, so he spoke it, and then things come out to be seen, right? All right, so we'll see later on how we do that. So do you guys have, what can words do? Tell me what words can do.
Give life.
Build you up.
Huh?
Can you give life?
It can give life. Okay, your words. Can tear you down.
Words can encourage, words can build up. Also, words can tear down. Words can also be a positive. Words can also construct. Words can also destruct, depending on how words are used.
Okay, yeah. I think you're saying the same thing everybody else is saying, but you probably can't hear them.
No, I can't. I really can't. I wish I could hear everything that everybody else is saying.
I
That way it won't be any repeating.
Oh, that's all good. Okay. So let's look at, so we can kill with our words. Do they want to agree? We can kill with our words. We can bring life with our words. We can bless with our words. We can curse with our words. We can make someone sad, mad, or unhappy. We can make someone joyful or happy with our words, right? So though we can't see the words, it does affect one another. Okay, everyone understands that, right? All right. Mishlei 18:21 says, death and life are in the power of the tongue, and they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. I want you to think about that. If death and life is in your tongue, Whatever that is, preferably if it's positive, you can eat some good fruit. But if not, whatever you love, eat of their fruit. There is some bad fruit, and there is judgment that comes with that fruit as well. So it goes both ways. That one good. All right, we're building up to something in just a minute. So our words have energy, but are unseen. They affect not just you, but those around you or those hearing you. Okay, so when you speak on behalf of Elohim, you are affecting people. When we speak negatively, using Elohim as our voice, you are affecting people. However you see it, you are affecting people. Is everyone with me so far? All right. All right, so I put how power is oneness, word or thought. Okay, so yeah, how powerful is oneness, word or thought. So we're going to go over a couple of slides on this, but Hebrews chapter 4, verse 12 says, for the word of Elohim is quick and powerful and sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing even to the dividing asunder the soul and the spirit, and of the joints and marrow, and is discerner of thoughts and intent of the heart. So the Father's word it works in your flesh, physically, spiritually, mentally. Everyone understands how this works, right? Matthew 12:25 says, and Yahuah knew their thoughts and said unto them, every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and every city or house divided against itself shall not stand. And if Shaitan cast out Shaitan, or if Satan cast out Satan, he is divided against himself. How shall then his kingdom stand? Okay. Have you thought about how the evil in this world seems to be prevailing? When you are on one accord with the word of Elohim, do you know how powerful we are? I want us to think about that. Do you think Elohim knows? Do you think the adversary knows? Right? So if you think about the adversary, if they're on one accord, notice how strong they're getting because they all are on one accord, right? The Father's people don't seem to be on one accord. So if we're not one, what winds up happening is the ones that are one, they begin to grow, get stronger, and the ones that are not starts to get weaker, and next thing you know, it's able to create division among the people. Okay, that's my easier way of saying that for right now. Is everyone understanding that part? All right. So Luke 17:21 says, neither shall they say, lo here or lo there, for behold, the kingdom of Elohim is within you. The kingdom that is within you must match the kingdom you are claiming to be going to. So I put, how does the kingdom grow? And before we answer that, I want you to see the previous slide was talking about the kingdom. The adversary has a kingdom. His kingdom is really growing. Question would be is, how does the Father's kingdom grow? Anyone got an answer for that? How does the Father's kingdom grow?
His kingdom grows by word of mouth through faith, hope, and love, by studying his word, following his law, statutes, and commandments, and passing them on to the brethren, to the young people, to those that are coming into the truth, and by having teachers, by having guidance, and the guidance, the teachers are like the pillar stones that pass on to the word. And as the word is being passed on, we are strengthened as we bring, or I should say, as the Most High bring more people into his fold. So the kingdom grows by the word of mouth from the Most High. It's like it trickles down so the kingdom can grow.
Okay, so kingdom growth starting within yourself. Everyone agrees that first it has to start within yourself. The next part of it is after you have it within yourself, and if you have family, then it's supposed to be passed down through the generations, right? But that still is considered your immediate family. The other way that it grows is among one another. So if we are divided, how can that kingdom stand, right? So we could be tearing down the Father's kingdom because we can't get along. Is everyone with me so far? All right, so just keep that in mind because this is what the Father's looking for. He's trying to see if the kingdom really is in you, and how he knows it's in you is by the fruit, which we'll see later on, that you produce. how we treat one another. Because everyone's claiming, hey, I'm ready to get to the kingdom. But when we get to the kingdom, are you going to be sitting there like, I've been talking to you the whole time. I love you the whole time. No, I'll just see you in the kingdom. And then I'll love you when I get into the kingdom. You think that's what's going to happen? No. Okay. So this is our training ground. All right. So when we are equally yoked, okay, that's what we got to practice how to be equally yoked. When we walk in agreement, okay, when we walk in agreement, when we put ourselves under proper authority, when we submit, when we grow in his word and purpose, we learn how to love, respect, and honor. When we give control back to him and allow him to show you who to be one with. And number 8, when we know our creator. Okay, this right here will allow us to begin to first within ourselves to be a proper kingdom, but also how to build his kingdom. We can't go out there talking about we're witnessing to everybody and we're just divided, right? That's just not going to work. Mm-hmm.
Mic on? Okay. Question. All right. When we talk about we are equally yoked and we walk in agreement, are we agreeing to something that's outside of the word? Or are we agreeing within the word?
Well, it's his kingdom, so we have to be within the word.
So if we don't agree within the word, then that shows us being unequally yoked.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then we can't really walk together.
No, we're not going to be
each
able
other
to.
or with the Most High.
Right. Because one can agree with something or agree with one another, but not really walk it out in an equally way, so to speak. In other words, yeah, I know the word says that. Yeah, I know the word says that. I don't like you. Okay. Yeah, I know that what we're supposed to do. I agree, Father, that you're true, but my actions don't show that I agree. Okay. So you have to have both of these things in order for this to happen. All right. How powerful is oneness in the word? Okay, so here's an example. Genesis 11:1 starts off, says, the whole earth was one language and of one speech. Verse 3 says, and they said one to another, go to, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone and slime had they for mortar. And they said, go to, let us build us a city and a tower whose top may reach unto Shamayim or heaven. And let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. Now, did they get scattered? But they knew that, right? Why? They all are on one accord. And Yahuah came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men built. And Yahuah said, behold, the people is one, and they have all one language, and this they begin to do. So now nothing will restrain from them which they have imagined to do. Nothing can come between them, because they all are on one accord. Keep that in mind. Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So Yahuah scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. What do you see here? Anything? What do you see?
Unity.
Okay.
Unity.
You see unity, right? You see how they all are on one accord. He says nothing can change, nothing can stop them. This is the same unity that the Father is asking of us. Mashiach says, I pray that they be one as we are one. But he wants us to be one in his word and not what? As they did, make us a name, right? We're not trying to make a name for ourselves, right? We're trying to build the Father's kingdom up. So we can do that, that he knows how powerful we can be, but he also sees how powerful we're when we're not doing what we're supposed to do. So he had to intervene and come down. So you see that he knows this. So I said the creator and the adversary knows the power of becoming one. The enemy is one. So you can see why they are prevailing. Why are we allowing him to sow, meaning the adversary, to sow tares among the wheat, so that we stay weak? We're going to be weak because we are getting into our flesh. We're getting into our skin. We're not allowing the Father to work in us in unity. Is everyone with me so far? All right. Did I go too fast? Yeah, I did. Okay. So say everything that we can see comes from things we cannot see. John 6:63 says, "It is the spirit that quickens. The flesh profits nothing. The words that I speak unto you, they are spirit and they are life. Flesh profits nothing." Okay, so the only thing that will then would be the spirit, right? So we're going to see what that means in just a minute. Isaiah 29:10 says, "For you has poured out upon you the spirit of deep sleep, and has closed your eyes, the prophets and your rulers, the seers, has he covered." Now, mind you, who he poured out of what? Spirit, something that you can't see. So you don't even know why you can't understand something, because he put a spirit that's higher than you that you can't see, which then comes into the natural. We not understand why we can't get certain things, but we'll see later on. "And the vision of all it came unto you as the word of a book that is sealed, which men delivered one that is learned, saying, Read this, I pray you. And he says, I cannot, for it is sealed." Daniel 12:4 says, "But you, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased." So when he opens that seal, then the words that you can't see will then start to manifest, will start to come out. Is everyone with me so far? All right. So I said, this is knowledge that has always been there. So his word has always been there, but has been sealed until a time appointed. This knowledge was unseen, to be seen in the latter days. Two things that are unseen here is the scriptures, or his word, is the spirit and his, I put the spirit and his word. I said what is seen is what is in us. The only way we can see his word, see the spirit, is by what you guys do, with your actions. Okay? All right. So what does it mean I am spiritual? How many of you guys are spiritual? Spiritual? You spiritual? You spiritual? Okay. What does that mean? None of the rest of y'all not spiritual, huh? We got some demons in here. Is that what you're saying?
It's spiritual too.
Okay. Well, they still didn't raise their hand. All right. Question is, what does it mean I'm spiritual? What does that mean to you? To those that say I'm spiritual, what does that mean to you? I'll drink some water while I wait to hear this answer. So you mean to tell me you're spiritual? Don't know why you're spiritual? Okay, time is up. All right. Look at these places here. John 3:5-6 says, Yahuah shall answer, Verily, verily, I say unto you, except you a man be born of water and of the Ruach, or the Spirit, he cannot enter into the kingdom of Elohim. That which is born of the flesh is flesh. That which is born of the Spirit is spirit. Okay, so are you all sharing? You guys are born of the Ruach or the Spirit? Now we need to go back to the James River. They're like, no. Okay. All right. So everyone understand, you were born of the Spirit. Everyone is with me, right? I don't know. 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 23 says, being born again, not of corruptible seed, but of incorruptible, by the word of Elohim, which lives and abides forever. Now, it says, what's a corruptible seed? What's an incorruptible seed? So what's a corruptible seed?
I believe corruptible seed is being easily influenced. Incorruptible seed is a fleshly seed, not having anything to do with the Father's word. It's more fleshly. It's more worldly.
Okay.
Not having the word of the Most High in them. They're just people that are just very fleshly, very materialistic.
Okay.
Yahusha said that he was talking to the Pharisees. He says, "You are of your father, the devil."
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of like basically they just weren't listening. They didn't want to listen to the truth and the Torah. Instead, rather do their doctrines of men.
Okay. So, back in Bereshit, Genesis, he said, I'm going to put enmity between your seed and her seed, right? The adversary's seed is a corrupted seed. It's a seed that likes to add, take away, cause division, challenge the Father's word. These are all things that will corrupt. It's a corruptible seed, right? Luke chapter 8, which we'll read in a minute, chapter 8 talks about the seed is the word of Elohim. That's not a corrupted seed, right? So if we know that it's also spiritual, we're going to understand what? That we got so far. To be spiritual, you're going to need you need the water, we need the washing, which we'll get a summary here. You need the Spirit, and you need his word. All these things are, in essence, unseen. Even when you do the immersion, it's a spiritual cleansing. All these things are unseen. Is everyone with me so far? Okay. Genesis 1:2, it says, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And then it says, and the Ruach of Elohim merachefet, which means it literally was vibrating over the water. It was hovering over the water. It was fluttering like a bird fluttering over the water. Anyway, upon the face of the waters. That's what the word moved is. I would never use the word move. But anyway, that's what it's saying. In other words, the Spirit has to do this thing on you. It did it on the water. Once it did it on the water, what happens then? Okay, so we can understand that if it's fluttering over the water and the Ruach is doing it, it's cleansing, purifying, and from out of it, everything becomes tov or good. Is everyone with me so far? Okay. Psalms 33:6 says, by the word of Yahuah were the heavens made, and all the hosts of heaven thereof, the breath of his mouth. Psalms 140 verse 30. Listen to what it says. You send forth your Ruach, your spirit. They are created, and you renew the face of the earth. So we got to figure out what's the purpose of this, him creating the spirit and why and what's going on this earth. There's a lot of spirits that's happening on this earth. Good spirits, bad spirits. Okay. Now, a lot of us don't want to entertain the good spirits. We definitely will entertain the bad spirits. Okay. So we good so far? All right. When you were shaking your head, was you saying that's what you want to entertain?
No.
Okay. All right. No problem. I got you. It's the things needed to sustain you until the end. So it says, so the things that you can't see are spiritual, but the things that are physical or natural can be seen. It is the natural that reveals the spiritual. So if the word or the seed is in your heart, what you can only see is what you reveal, i.e. your fruit. Okay. So I put summary of what it is you need a washing or a cleansing. You need the seed or his word so that we can, and then we can see how that person produces certain fruit. And then you need the spirit of the Ruach as a guide. As John says, the spirit will lead and guide you to all truth. Okay. Is everyone with me so far? Haven't lost anyone. So this is we're all on this fundamental level here. It's about to ramp up in just a minute. And when it does, I need to make sure you guys are okay. Those that are spiritual. Okay, anyway. Isaiah 58.
Get that, baby.
All right, so Isaiah 58:11. Not to mute it. So it says 58:11 says in 12 it says, and Yahuah shall guide you sometimes. Oh, he will. Okay, so it says, and Yahuah shall guide you continually and satisfy your soul in drought and make fat your bones, and all shall be like a watered garden. Okay, and like a spring of water whose water fails not. And they that shall be of you shall build the old waste places You shall raise up the foundations of many generations, and you shall be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of path to dwell in. So, but who is to raise the foundation of the generation and the repairer of the breach? Who is that? Okay, so we are. Everyone understands we're the one that's supposed to be doing this, right? How can we be doing this divided? How's that possible? Because if you're saying is we are to restore the breaches, and if we are to restore them, we're restoring it to build up his kingdom. Okay, so once you have the relationship, you want to share that relationship with others. I will assume, right? So that's the objective, right? All right. It says we are with. I said we are. It says with his guidance, with his truth. What is truth? His word is truth, right? It says we are the ones used to raise up the latter days, to restore the path of righteousness. We restore it and not recreate, because that's what a lot of people are doing. We are not creating nothing. He's already created what was necessary. The best we can do is recreate what he's already created. Is everyone with me so far? Our words and actions will restore. He gives us the ability to restore what we have destroyed. Remember, we always talk about praying for our forefathers. They've destroyed a lot. So he's using us to restore the things that were messed up or broken down. It says we have made his word void. Okay. How do you make his word void? By chance.
By the traditions of men.
Okay. Traditions of men. What else? Not obeying his word as well, right? So we follow tradition without challenging the tradition. There are some good traditions, don't get me wrong, but there are some that are bad. And then there are some things that we do because of what we've been through, we make it void. Okay, his words will be restored in the latter days. So if you say, hey, I'm in the latter days, why aren't you not restoring his word? Okay, so we'll see that in a little bit. All right. Is this too? Okay, so this is going to get a little challenging. All right, so I need you guys to pay close attention. Okay, the 2 and 3 letter parent roots. All right, so we're going to see how this, I'm going to give it fundamentally, and then later on in a future lesson, we're going to break this down a little bit further. I said, so the way in which Hebrew works can be seen in the structure of the universe. So I'm going to show you how the Hebrew and the universe works. I'm going to see the Hebrew and our bodies work. They both work together. We're going to see how that works. So one example that I would like to use is the pay and the resh, right? Par, which means to divide or to open. So just keep in mind, just in that parent root. And of course, Hebrew has, most of it is 3-letter roots or shoresh, right? I'm just giving you a 2-letter for right now. And then I'm going to jump ahead of myself. I said by adding the 3rd letter gives us meaning. Right? So I'll give you an example. Let's just say I say a 2-letter where I say gum. Gum means also. But also what? See, there's nothing to give you. Now, a 3rd letter added to that would tell you also something. Right? So we're going to see how this works here. Where it says if I add the 3rd letter, so I'm only going to use the pay and the resh, and I'm going to add an aleph. Okay? So if I add an aleph, it says this word means to bear fruit. Okay, so para means to bear fruit, or specifically a wild fruit, wild flower. Okay, all I added was the aleph to the Hebrew there, and it means something that's wild. Okay, now, as a design of a flower or a certain fruit is they open up agriculturally. So that's what a flower does. It just opens up. Some things can open up wildly. You can be wild with how you're opening up, right? All right, so Genesis, Bereshit 16:12 says, and he will be a
Wild man.
para. That is the word. He will be a wild man. His hand will be against every man, and every man's hand against him, and he shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren. Okay, so again, there's your word para there to show you that means someone that is wild. Okay, the next one I'm going to use is parad. Right, which means to separate or to break up or to divide. Genesis 25:23 says, and Yahuah said unto her, 2 nations are in your womb, and two manner of people shall be parad, separated from your bowels, and the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. So you see, by adding that letter there, it tells you it's not just an open or divide, but it's a type. It's a separation that's about to take place. Now, if you look at it in our language today, if I say part, what two letters you hear? A P and R. If I say particle, particle is a part of something. Participle. So you see, in other words, even our language operates like this. All right, but I won't go too far into that until we really start talking about it. So anyway, I'll give another one while it thinks. All right, so I said one more example, which is pari. So again, it says for one more pari, which means pari is fruit, right? You don't even have to guess. It's right up there, I promise.
Yeah.
All right. So again, notice the pay and the resh, right? Pari. It says, now that we see how this works, let's see how it works concerning us. We are told to produce fruit. Okay, you would know a person by their fruit. So now if the pay is the mouth and the resh is the head, and this doesn't work, you know, in syntax, it's just pictographically is how this realistically breaks down. But when you add the yod, it means a hand, right? Is everyone with me so far? So I said, looking at this from an abstract, that which you say, produce, and your actions become your fruit. So the hand is really dealing with your works, right? So if you think about the mouth, you say stuff, the head, something in there, and then your hand, and then this is how we can judge a person by their fruit. So whatever seed is planted in you, that is the fruit I produce. So that's what we'll see from a person. So Luke 8:11 says, now the parable is this. The seed is the word of Elohim. Okay, seed produces fruit. Everyone's with me. 21. And he answered and said unto them, my mother and my brother are these which hear the word of Elohim, and there's an action to it, right? So we got to see that when we hear the Father's word, we can't just hear it and not do it. But he's letting you know how you become a part of the family, a part of the kingdom. You hear it and then you do it. Is everyone with me? 1 Peter 1:23 says, being born again, not of corruptible seed, but of incorruptible by the word of Elohim, lives and abides forever, which we talked about earlier. Matthew 7:16 says, you shall know them by their fruit, not by their seed, because you can't see how a seed is, right? We'll see that picture about it, huh? It's about a clothes. Okay, well, that clothes still had something to produce it. All right, it says, do men gather grapes of thorns or figs or thistles? So I said a quick look is how, and I'm going to give you a picture of how a seed works in just a minute. But I want you to see here is that if their fruit is telling on them, then we let you know that we know what seed they're operating under, right? So if we all are brothers and sisters here and we're saying, you know, sometimes we eat from good fruit, sometimes we eat from bad fruit, is it our job to let everyone know, or that person know, not everyone know, but that person, go to that person and help them understand that they might be eating from bad fruit, or they might have taken a bad seed. Okay, is that what we're supposed to do? Okay, all right. Not everybody agrees, I understand. All right, so let's look at the picture here. And I want you to look at how this seed works.
Excuse me, Moreh.
Yeah.
I believe that we should. And I think we should come to the brother or sister and talk to them in privately, and not, you know, embarrass them in front of the rest of the brothers and sisters, but talk to them, you know, in private.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Not embarrass them.
I know they're not on the microphone talking to you so you can hear, but they said the same thing you said, which that means you're the second witness or the third or fourth. Okay. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
All right. So Tell me what you see in this picture. See a plant growing? Okay. Anyone else? Huh? You see Bereshit? Okay. Anyone else?
I see a seed,
Okay.
but we don't know if the seed if it's a good seed or if it's a bad seed. So it's the beginning of the seed taking root.
Okay. All right. So let me tell you what I see. And I hope you guys see the same thing I see. Notice what happens. The seed is in the earth. It's something that you can't see, right? And then from that stage, what happens? The root starts to do something first. It grows down to get root in that earth. Specifically, you're the earth. We come from the dust of the earth, right? So it takes root. Notice that shell starts to die off. That is your old you. That is your old self. You're shaving yourself. You're coming something new. And then as you begin to grow, and I didn't find one with no water, but you see the sunlight and the water, and then it starts to produce fruit. This is the process naturally and spiritually. Okay? Is everyone okay with this so far? All right.
It's going to take a long time before you
Yeah.
see evidence.
Oh, yeah.
Root system going deeper.
So I said, looking at this video, notice the spreading out of the flower. This spreading out ultimately produces fruit. The only way you know them is by their fruit. You cannot see the seed that a person is operating from. Most seeds start downward, then produce upward, because it needs a root. So some things is so rooted in you that you really need to do some soul searching to get that thing out of your system. That's how bad it is. So I'm saying there's good fruit and then there's bad fruit, but they both grow the same way, right? So just as much as you have good fruit, that seed should be grounded in you, should never change. You get a bad fruit, see how it takes root. Man, that's rough to get out. Now I remember when I got my wisdom tooth taken out. I don't know, I mean, you guys got your wisdom tooth taken out, but it was in the military, and I was somewhat sedated. And that doctor was like all on that chair trying to get that thing. He said, man, that one root is just so, he's just pulling and pulling to finally got it out. I was like, wow. But anyway, that's how strong a root is. Okay. All right. Now they just chop it out. Root canals and all this other stuff. All right. These are some other ones, but I'm not going to go over it. But I put in there the word paratz, literally means to break out or break forth. The word parach literally means to bud or to blossom. So all I'm simply saying is that the pei and the resh, where you have that third root, you'll see that there's a lot of similarities or cognates of it that share the same understanding of those two letters. That's what I really want everyone to get out of all this. Okay. All right. So notice the two-letter root are all the same in the Hebrew. These would be called particles. So I'm now using some science terms. These are particles. Particles are something that you can't see, but it does exist, but you need another part of it to kind of see it, which is you, which we'll see later on. I said a parent are like particles. When you have a child, is made what? From the particle, meaning from the parent. It creates a root. You have an offspring. You have something, when you put it together, it produces something. That's what the Father wants us to see, which I may talk about in the future. All right, so the particles are necessary to understand the atom, which we're going to see in just a minute. The three main subatomic particles that form an atom are protons, neutrons, and electrons. And I will not go over all of these this time, but when we do a lesson, I'll tell you what, can y'all share with me a proton, neutron, electron in a spiritual way? Can anyone do that? Okay, great. So let's just go to the next.
They are building blocks.
Okay.
You need the proton. The proton is the basic building block, and from the proton it builds upon the neutron, and so on and so forth. These are building blocks. I'm not going to go into long specifics. I'm not going to bring in my scientific mind, but these are what they call the building blocks of life.
Okay.
But these are building blocks.
Okay. But we're going to see how they build. So in other words, they're called building blocks, but why are they called building blocks? But I want to see how we're going to take it to the next level in a couple more slides. So before we do that, I put the word pa'al. Everyone know what pa'al is? It's a verbal stem. It's a syntax word. It's called pa'al, right? So pa'al means to do or to make or to act, to work, to operate. This is the Hebrew word for energy. That is your Hebrew word. It's a verbal action. Our actions create energy. Is everyone with me so far? So I'll give some examples here in Psalms 74, verse 12. It says, and Elohim is my king of old, Pa'al, working salvation in the midst of the earth. When it says working salvation in the midst of the earth, that is you. We are the ones in the midst of the earth that he's trying to work with, right? It's an action. It's the word Pa'al. Psalms 6 verse 8 says, depart from me, all you that workers or Pa'al of iniquity, for Yahuah has heard the voice of many weeping. Workers or Pa'al of iniquity, what is that? Those that are working and operating in iniquity. Okay. Luke 13:27 says, but he shall say, I tell you, I know you not whence you are. Depart from me, all Pa'al or workers of iniquity. Okay. Matthew 7:22-23 says, many will say unto me this day, Adon Adon, have we not prophesied in your name, and in your name have cast out devils, and in your name done many wonderful works? But he says, and then I will profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you that work iniquity. Again, that work, that Pa'al is you now operating or working against his word. It becomes iniquity. If you know transgression of the law, or it becomes iniquity. Is everyone okay with this? Yeah, so in the Hebrew, there's Pa'al. In the Greek, there's two. So there's one here, and I gave this one because it's a different one. It's called pioma, which means, or poima, actually, which means workmanship, right? So it says in Ephesians 2:10, for we are all workmanship, a poema, created in Mashiach Yahushua unto good works, which Elohim has before ordained that we should walk in them. Our walk has to be in righteousness, not iniquity, not transgression, not sin. That's what it is. So that's what the Paul, but I give this here. I get one more. Then I'll go over the chart really fast. So Colossians 1:16, so for by him were all things created that are in Shamayim or in heaven, and that are Haaretz or in the earth, visible, invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers, all things were created by him and for him. And he is before all things, and by him all things consist. Sunastemi, that's the Greek word there, sunastemi, to sustain, okay? To hold all things together is what the word sunastemi means, which we get the word, English word sustain from. All right, so in Hebrew, for the word sunastemi, it's sab, right? And what that means is the root word for command, or you get the word commandment, right? What is called the standard model that holds. All right. I put what is called the standard model that holds this universe together is made up of two things, fermions and bosons. Is everyone familiar with fermions and bosons? Okay. All right. So which are particles? Okay. The word particle comes from the word parse. This is how you parse out the Hebrew, right? It's parse. So anyway, which means part. So fermions are things that are made, i.e. what you can see, touch, taste. They would be the nouns, if you will, of the universe. All right, so they're particles, but these are considered things that you can touch, taste, and things like that in the universe. Is everyone with me so far? Bosons, the unseen force and or energy that interacts between the fermions, things you can see, i.e. particles, in the universe, that is your, I put verb or your action. And then that's the word where you're going to get mitzvah or command. So it's actually the action of which something that you can see and then something that you can't see does work together to make you do something. Okay, so I was going to talk about spirits. That's why I put on here. In the future, I want to show how things that are unseen get into things that are seen, how it operates in the scene. So be it us as matter and mass, be it spirits that are unseen. The fermions would be us. The bosons would be the spirits and demons and things like that. And when they come together, they start to animate you or in a direction that it wants you to go. Okay? Is everyone with me up to this level? Yeah? Am I losing nobody? Oh man, I could do some more then. All right. Yahuah 23:28 says, the prophet that has a dream, let him tell a dreamer, and that he has my word, let him speak my word. How? Faithfully. What is the chaff to the wheat, saith Yahuah? Is not my word like as a fire, saith Yahuah, and like a hammer that breaks the rock in pieces? Okay. In other words, his word is unseen, but how does it do it? It starts to break down particles or things that you can't see in your life. How many people say they're going through something in their life or in their mind or in their heart? Well, it's unseen, but it's seen through your actions. I can see it in your face. I can see it in the way you walk, the way you talk. Those things are seen, but these are all little particles. So his word is saying, listen, my word is like fire. I see all of this. Right? I will clear all this out. I will burn it. I will destroy it out of your life if you allow it. All right. John 1:1 says, in the beginning was the word, and the word was with Elohim, and the word was a Elohim. If you ever look that up in the future, you'll see that the word a should be there. This is not my day to go over syntax, but my point here is the word is something that is used by Elohim. Verse 14 says, and the word was made flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his esteem as of the only begotten, or the brought forth of the Father, full of favor and truth. So now this word comes on the scene or in the flesh, it's supposed to have truth, right? You're supposed to be operating in this truth. Acts 7:38 says, this is that Mushar Moses, which said unto the children of Israel, Yashral, a prophet shall Yahuah your Elohim raise up unto you of your brethren, like unto me, him you shall hear. Then it says, this is he that was in the assembly in the wilderness with the Malach, or the messenger, commonly called the angel, which spoke to him in Mount Sinai or Sinai, and with our fathers, who received the lively oracles to give unto us. What is the word for oracles? It's the bar, it's the word, right? So I'll give you the Greek first, legion, right? Of the root for the word logos, the word debar. And in the Septuagint is the word hoshin. Hoshin is the breastplate of the high priest. He is that, but we'll talk about that in the future. You're spitting on the floor, actually? Yeah. Okay. All right. Hebrews 11:1 says, now, faith is substance. Remember, we read earlier that also the substance is the word, right? We also know that it was the substance is what was breathed upon, but we'll keep going. Of things hoped for and evidence of things not seen. For by it the elders obtain a good report. Through faith, we understand that the world were framed by the word of Elohim, so that things which are seen were not made of things which do appear. So I put faith as substance and evidence of things not seen, right? How many of us want this type of faith here, and others operate faith that they only can see? That's the problem. You got some that want to operate in an unseen faith, meaning you got to walk this thing out and have full trust and belief, or you're going to walk out in a way that if I can't see it, I'm not doing it, right? So Romans 10:17 says, then faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word. All right. So we see that the word is the faith. It's the substance. It's a particle. It's something that you can't see, but you're supposed to be walking it out. Okay. So the word is a particle, or particles, and we are the atoms. I wasn't gonna really do the Adam's part, but we'll just talk a little bit about it. So the Father's word is what framed all things. It is also called matter. Okay, so we are made of mass. Does his word matter? But it was first unseen, but made seen by you, by nature, by this world. In other words, everything that we see came by his word. Okay? So when a person says, I don't want to give it energy, what does that mean to you? I want to give it power. I don't want to give it life. So, but what is it? I mean, it says, I don't want to give it energy. Is it something that's unseen, something that's seen? What do you mean you don't want to give it life? Give what life?
We don't speak certain words to the atmosphere to that its vibration or its energy go forth and create whatever it is we say. The certain words against people.
Mhm.
Speak certain things over our children. We're supposed to be blessed. You never tell your child he's dumb, he's stupid, can never learn. It can be manifested.
You said that's not good?
That's not good at all.
Man, a lot of people got to go into the prayer room back there.
What about momentum?
Huh?
Momentum.
Momentum? Okay. So again, when you think about it, if you want to give it energy, it's almost like me sharing also, when we start to have disagreements, problems with one another, you don't want to give it energy. Why? It will start to, it'll grow, it'll manifest. So just keep that in mind. Yahuah, or Jeremiah 29:11 says, for I know the thoughts that I think towards you, saith Yahuah, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end. But we don't want to give each other that. Verse 12, then shall you call upon me, and you shall go and pray unto me, and I will hearken unto you. All right? And you shall seek me and find me when you shall search for me with all your heart. Now, how do you search someone with all your heart? That's a really interesting concept. How do you search someone with all your heart? Or the Father? How do you do that?
Total abandonment of yourself as you obey his word. Search his word to see who he is and what path he wants. You just totally follow that path no matter what anybody else says. You're going to follow that path. Because you forgive people that you once hated, the people you hated. You're going to embrace the strangers. You're going to embrace the things that he say embrace. You're going to shun the things he say shun. Total abandonment. It doesn't matter what the social norms are, what his norms.
Okay.
Rarely seen.
Okay. So,
Can I share something on that?
no.
It kind of to me is like if you had a child and the child got lost, and you being a parent, and as much as you love that child, you're going to do whatever it takes to find that child, even if it means going out into a swamp or whatever and go swim in a sump. You may think the child may fell and got hurt. You're going to do whatever it takes to find that child, with every bit of your being. That's kind of like an analogy I can think of.
Okay. Me dad.
Can I say something, Moreh?
You can. I mean, you've been rolling.
You're going to search with all your mind, your soul, your spirit, your strength, your energy.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to put forth everything you have to seek and to search for answers, and you're going to pray and you're going to believe, mm-hmm. and know that the Father is going to answer you. He said, seek me and ye shall find. But we have to seek with confidence and knowing and having faith, mm-hmm. that he's gonna answer us, and we're gonna find him when we seek with all our mind, our heart, our soul, and our spirit. Okay. And believe that.
Okay.
That's what I get out of it.
Okay. Dad Yahuah had something?
But the thing is, he's not.
Oh, okay.
He's not hidden. He's not hiding himself. He's right there, he's right there within the pages of the book that we call the Bible. He's right there, He's not hiding, that when we search for him, we know exactly where to go to look.
Okay. But when it says with all your heart, I want us to understand something. I'm not saying that all you guys have some good answers, but when you do with all your heart, you got to make sure that means everything that's not like him that you're doing, you got to get that right. Your whole heart has to be towards him, meaning you've done everything that you possibly can in his word that you can come to him in a certain way. If you haven't done all these things, you're coming half-hearted. So you got to come with a whole heart, all of your heart. So, but we are children who have to keep searching for him through his word. If you believe you have fulfilled this task, meaning both him and his word, you have fooled yourself. We have found him, but we still must seek his word until we fulfill Yahuah or Jeremiah 31 through 34, which talks about when we no longer need to teach one another. We all know him from the least to the greatest. We haven't gotten there yet. So there's always a growth. There's always an improvement if we keep seeking him. Okay, Yahuah 29:14 says, I will be found of you, saith Yahuah, and I will turn away your captivity, and I will gather you from all the nations and from all the places where I have driven you, saith Yahuah, and I will bring you again into the place whence I caused you to be carried away captive. So I put Yahuah gave his commandments to his people to have a relationship with him. If you are struggling with his commandments, you can cause the curse to be upon you or on you. The relationship comes with blessings and curses, as we went through the Torah portion, right? So you got to recognize that since you agreed to it, it's causing you to have to do something, even if you don't want to do it. Okay? All right. All right. All right. Seeking Yah. Devarim 4:29 and 30 says, but if from thence you shall seek Yahuah your Elohim, you shall find him. If you seek him with all your heart and with all your soul. When you are in tribulation and all these things are come upon you, even in the latter days, if you turn to Yahuah your Elohim and shall be obedient unto his voice, ... Meaning what? Again, there's an obedience to his voice that you must do, right? This is a part of your seeking with all your heart. Even in the tribulational times and the latter days, you still got to do this. Hosea 5:15 says, I will go and return to my place till they acknowledge their offense and seek my face in their affliction. They will seek me early. So I put notice the acknowledging of your offenses. Notice you must turn back or return to him and be obedient to his voice. Then he will hear you and you will find him. Then we can have a relationship. That's what has to happen. It can't be on your terms. I don't want to do that, Father, but hear me. No, that's not how that works. Okay. All right. So here I put the Hebrew verb stems. So the call, nafal, peel, pool, hifel, hufel, and hitpael. And so the call stem is what we call a simple action, or its simplest form. That's an active verb, right? But it's in its call. But notice all the rest of them has the action. Remember I told you about the all, the pay, the ayin, and the lamed? They're in all the rest of these. The last one, which is the hitpael, this one, which says a reflective, this is what you do to yourself. This is the issue that a lot of people are not seeing. The intensive action is what you do to yourself in the hitpael pattern. So all verb stems are actions. The two words that describe the action, work or energy, and to build something is the binyanim. That's the plural of binyan. So the word binyan in the Hebrew word means a building or structure. So the idea is we can build all verbs by obeying certain rules, and that Hebrew verb have structure. Okay, so syntax is very important. It has structure. Binyan comes from a three-letter root, which is bana. Bana is the three-letter root, which the root word means to build. That's what bana means, to build.
Be Moreh. Moreh.
Ken.
The hipael, isn't that also reciprocal, what you do to others?
Yeah, Yep.
Okay, so
And when you see it says the root word for son, the word son is bin, but the root of that word is bana, right? It's still bana. So I put the relationship between how Hebrew works, his word, and seeing the word operate like the DNA/RNA within us, and how we work will play a big part in understanding how to walk out his word in spirit and in truth. So what I want to do now is start to use a little bit of the Hebrew here to see how it works within ourselves. Okay, so we're going to go a little bit further and then we'll stop. We'll let's pick it up next week when we get changed. Okay. Atom or Adam. I'm not going to talk about the Adam portion of it right now, but I would like to present a case that will be explored in a future lesson. This may help us see ourselves and see Elohim in us. So everyone see this atom, right? And we heard earlier about the proton, the neutron, the electron, and the nucleus, right? Everyone familiar with all that? Went to sciencey schools and colleges? Okay, great. Look at the deal. It says an atom by itself cannot produce life. I mean, it does have life, but it does not produce life. Okay? It is when an atom combines with other atoms that true life begins. This bonding of atoms. And if you say, well, hey, we're atoms, if you will, we have to start bonding. But we don't want to do that. Okay, it's fine. So I got another one for you. So the atom has a proton, which I would like to introduce as man. Proton is the form of a man with a lot of energy. It's just energy, okay? The electron is to be seen as the woman, okay? Both of them still have energy, right? But it says, think about the word for helpmate, which means someone that's the opposite of, right? Remember, it's on the opposite side. And you look at the electron and look how it rotates. It's all over the place, right? But we'll talk about that in the future. I said that it creates, this is what the electron does. It creates a ionic bond. It creates an ionic bond. So we're going to see how that works in the future with a woman to a man. The neutron can be seen as the ruach, or the spirit. Okay, it is the force. All right, so the Father is in the nucleus, which we'll talk about in a little bit. I said power that holds things together. So we'll see that the Father is in the nucleus. Have I lost anybody so far? Everything's good? No questions? Awesome. So here's an example. Bereshit 2:7 says, and Yahuah Elohim formed man of the dust of the ground. That is your mass and matter. And breath in his nostrils. This is your energy. The breath of life, and man became a living soul, a force. That's how we became a force. So this stage can be looked at as a call stem phase, a simple form, if you will, to have life. You need the matter to become alive by way of the energy. The energy is working in matter to give life, or a life force. Okay? Everyone's still good? Okay, great. Job, we got about 2, maybe 3 more slides and I'll stop. Job 19:26 says, and though after my skin, worms is implied, destroys this body is implied, yet in my flesh shall I see Elohim. How can you see Elohim in your flesh? Anyone? Y'all don't see Elohim in your flesh? Huh? You said what? Circumcision. So you look down there, hey Elohim. That work? Okay, got you. I got you. It's a covenant agreement. Okay. Anyone else? Okay.
Said skins are.
Right, but right. So it says, after my skin worms destroy this body,
So.
yet in my flesh. Okay. All right. So let us look into ourselves or our cells and see if we can see Elohim. So in the nucleus of the cell is where the seed is. Okay. The seed or DNA that will produce like kind. Okay. So in the nucleus, we have the DNA. The DNA has to be turned into RNA in order for the information to leave the nucleus. DNA does not leave the nucleus because it always has to be protected since it carries our genes. Okay? I want you to picture this as the Father, or the image of the Father, his throne, and those beings, all those beings that surround throne. Okay? He stays. Have you guys ever read where Yahuah leaves his throne? Is there an address for that? But his word will come out and go forth. But have you ever read where he left his throne? Okay, all right, just keep that in mind. I said, so what makes this more interesting is the breakdown of the RNA. The messenger RNA carries the genetic information copied from DNA in the form of a series of 3 base codes called words. 3-letter root in the Hebrew, right? It's broken down into codes and it is considered words. That's how we get our shoresh, our roots. So anyway, and then I put on here each of which specifies a particular amino acid. They are considered 3-letter roots called codons, right? Everyone's familiar with codons. And 22 amino acids which are connected to, or in human beings, the proteinogenics amino acids are amino acids that are incorporated biosynthetically into protein during translation. Okay, so the word proteinogenics means protein creating. So throughout known life, there are 22 genetically encoded or proteinogenics amino acids, 20 in the standard genetic code, and additional 2 that can be incorporated by special translation mechanism in the tRNA, which is just a translation of the RNA. So if our future study, or I was in our future study, I would like to show how 3, most Hebrew words have 3-letter roots, and 22, like the 22 Hebrew letters, create a message word that can bring forth life and make like kind after like kind. The parallel between the word of Yahuah and how we are designed are so similar that we can actually see Yahuah in our bodies. That's what I'm saying. The Father's word made us. We can actually see it even in our DNA. Okay? So we'll talk about that in the future. And last slide. So why is this important? Knowing our purpose or understanding of our purpose can help us operate the one who made it, or operate on how the one who made us, our creator. We are not the DNA in this remez or soul state or in this higher understanding. We are the RNAs. We are the messengers for the DNA, which is the Father. We were designed to see him within ourselves in our walk, creating a positive energy that would create light. The word is his DNA. It was within his DNA. It is called light, meaning his word is called light. It's called truth, and it has power. Only if we operate by his design. Okay, his design. So when we change the codes, it will no longer bond to the DNA strand, i.e. the creator. Our ways has to match his ways. We cannot bring forth his message operating in our own RNA or our own message. The bond only takes place when we bond with the right source. The atom grows when it attaches to other atoms. How can we grow together as a people claiming to be preparing for the kingdom when we are divided people? The way we treat one another is very hard to swallow sometimes. The information or the lack thereof that which gives one another are sometimes very poisonous or bitter. Sometimes we can get that way towards one another. And I put the adversary's kingdom is growing at an alarming rate. What does this tell you?
That they're producing their seed just fine.
Huh? Okay, so I want you to, if his kingdom is growing, right? Watch what happens. That should tell you Yahuah will be here soon. It's getting worse out here. It's getting bad, right? So he is looking for a people that is following the DNA strand he provided. We cannot be his messenger violating his word. The end result for all RNAs is death. Meaning, if you ever look up how RNA works, once it connects, then the RNA dies, right? So ask yourself, these are your questions. Did I listen, obey, follow the message that was given to me? The code or codes given to me? Did I walk them out in the way I was made to? Is he pleased with how I gave his message? Are my actions, meaning the word, the particles, which means parts and energy and works, joy, pleasing to him? These are things you got to ask yourself, because when we start to go into how the DNA works, you cannot morph the DNA, specifically the father's DNA. You can't change that. So when we start doing that, ask yourself, is he going to be pleased with all of your actions and things that you do? No. We can't, mess up the originator of everything, right? And then he sends a prototype, and now we're thinking within that prototype, we can create another prototype. We can't do that, right? So I'll stop here for any questions. So yes, Shalot, just let it means any questions.
Yes.
Comments. Mm-hmm.
What you just said, kind of like it's a picture of when Yahuah created us. He said, "Let us make man in our image." In the sense, he gave us his DNA. Yet when they partook of the tree of good and evil, then they got the RNA.
Mm-hmm.
They died.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. That's why we have to, when he married Israel, for an example, there had to be a washing and a cleansing and a purging and a being reborn, if you will, in his word, and all this had to happen. Then I got to test you by putting you in certain gardens, if you will, gardens of Eden that are outside of his real garden, just to test to see where you are. And a lot of times we're just failing these tests over and over again. And we got to say, okay, well, at least right now we have the opportunity to keep trying to get it right now, until the time, whereas once you hit that dirt, you're finished. That message RNA is finished. There is no more. Okay, you've worn out all your trials. Okay. All right. Any other questions?
I have a question, but I'll have to text you the question. I think it's a little more complicated. I don't want to take up anybody else's time in reference to if they may want to ask you a question, Moreh.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You can text me. It's no problem. All right. Anyone else? So this is realistically an intro to what I would like to explore with everybody in the future, and tie in the Father's word, the universe, us, all of these things, how they all operate as one, and how we can be one with everything if we walk things out in a way that is pleasing to him. Okay, that's a possibility if we're willing to do that. I'm not saying everybody's going to be on the same level.
Question.
I'm not sure.
Sorry.
I'm not going to say everybody's at the same level. Everyone's at a level that the Father has you at that time, or however level you are based off of what you've been studying is where you are. So I'm not saying everyone has to be equally on that level, but I'm simply stating wherever level you are, you should be wanting to operate in righteousness in that particular level. Okay? You said you had a question?
Yes, Moreh. In reference to the 22 Hebrew alphabets in the word of Yahuah, in the Hebraic language, and we know that we have 23 chromosomes. I don't know if you have more time to elaborate on that question. How do we get to where it's 23 across the board?
Well, we'll have to talk about, when I talk about chromosomes and amino acids, and I'll talk about the X and Y gene, that's when I'll bring in the actual 23rd, the 23. So, so until I do that part, I didn't want to open that up, and we'll have probably a long discussion as to how the chromosomes, how the X and Y works with the man and with the female, and then really how that works in the Father's Word. But I will work how it operates in pairs of twos. I will talk about how the code, the proteins, the 4 proteins, how the 4 proteins operate in a way that it talks about the 4 corners of the earth, talks about, I'll be going for some things, so I'll stop there. But there's so much stuff to talk about what 4 represent, you know, how 4 actually represents a whole, you know, of things. So I'll have to wait until I go through all those things.
Okay, Toda, that was my question.
Okay.
Toda.
Yeah, the mic you want to say?
Lamadyahu, you know what you're going to be teaching on next week? Are you going back to the beginning and?
Well, let me just stop you right there, Aki. I won't be teaching next week. I think it's Yashron that's going to be teaching next week. So I can help you out right there. Now, if he wants to elaborate as to what he's going to be teaching, he is here in the room. However, yeah, I will be teaching next week. It will be actually Yashron or Kanan. I'm not sure which one it is. Oh, is Yashron? Okay. So if you want me to deflect that question or defer to Yashron?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that way we can kind of be ahead.
Mm-hmm.
We can pre-study.
Absolutely.
So wait and see, Aki.
He-
Let's let Yahuah speak.
He wants to speak. He wants to speak to his heart on the matter. Okay. Any other questions? All right. Is it on the? Okay.
Question I had.
You had a question?
Yeah. It had to do with, keep talking about the activity of the DNA and how it's supposed to bond to each other as us being individual atoms together to make up this body. Right. So I see where it goes. You know. But because maybe some of us will come into this walk, we'll be very sincere. And so we'll look at our King James Version of the Bible, and whatever it says, that's what we're going to believe right off the jump, right off the rip, not knowing anything about no Hebrew language or trying to understand. That's why most guys say, how did you come into the walk? Did you know any Hebrew? Did you just read this Bible the way it was? But then we find if we don't begin to study, we find ourselves coming into all kinds of conflicts. Everybody has the same questions over and over and over again. And then we're not, that's what causes this rift. So here I am trying to keep the law, statute, commandments to the best of my knowledge based on the information that I have here. I might not have a teacher. I'm just trying to do this on my own. And I feel like nobody out here is right. So that's feeding into the adversary's camp. Because if I'm thinking that nobody has any information that can help me to grow in understanding and the knowledge of the word, then I'm going to stay isolated from the body. I can't be a part of a body saying I'm the hand and I'm over there. You know what I'm saying? No, it's not going to work. I'm just going to die and wither away. Or I'm going to get discouraged. Or I'm going to go down some weird path. You know? So we have to learn how to maybe humble ourselves and then listen and hear every matter. You know, and not just be quick to kick it away because we don't quite understand it. You know, they're like this lesson right here over a lot of heads. Oh yeah. You're talking RNA, DNA, tRNA. If you haven't really took a medical course or you don't really follow it, a person couldn't even pronounce
the letter of D in the DNA. You know what I'm saying? So to see this on that level and how accurate it is, how it, how all this stuff ties together, we have to really be able to hear this matter out and then go back and kind of take our time and peel this thing back piece at a time, because like I say, we come in and we're very sincere about it with all our heart. But then this one says I can do this on Shabbat. This one says I can't do this on Shabbat. Well, this one's keeping this calendar, that one's keeping that calendar. This one's doing this, and they're all trying sincerely do what the Father said wants done. How do we get past all those obstacles?
Yeah, if we get to an understanding that we got the absolute truth, as some claim to have, that's where we'll start to fall short anyway. The Father's given His word to different people to spread His word. And if you think that you can go to this one-stop shop and you got everything here, and anyone that comes against you, they're all liars, I'm the only one that's the truth, then of course we're gonna have some issues. But we also gotta give room that the Father is giving other people more information to teach one another at a certain level that they should be able to receive, but without me having to go bash other people to make myself look a certain way, or bash other people because I don't like what I heard. That's not what this is all about. It just creates more division. You know what I mean? So if we're willing to go back and study, a lot of this stuff people are not going to learn Hebrew. Some people are going to learn maybe katsat or a little Hebrew. But if they're the ones that do know it and is willing to share without any bias or share without any trying to make other people look a certain way, then they'll be more acceptable to receive it. But unfortunately, we have some that don't do that. You know what I mean? And then we got some people that, kind of has an assumption about groups and things like that, or whatever they believe, and they shun away from them. But I'm not saying for everyone to eat it out of every table. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm simply getting that is, as you begin to grow, ask the Father to show you certain things. This right here is very abstract. Everything I went over here so far is just really a broad introduction. You know what I mean? I'm not going to say it's simple, but I'm saying it is very broad, because within all of that we talked about, we would really have to break it down in particles, okay, in parts. And then when we do that, then we can build from that. We can talk about why life is in the blood. What does that literally mean? Life is in the blood. There's a whole slew of reasons if you look at it in the Hebrew. But in the English, we might just look at it because it had life, and an animal was running around and it died. Or if it died and life is in the blood, how does that work still? So I'm saying there's a whole lot more into it that I would just simply state, if they go back and research it, pray about it, see if that's what the Father's moving their hearts, and say, okay, this makes sense, Father. I may not fully understand it, but my Ruach is bear witnessing that this is righteous, and I need to, maybe elevate myself in the culture or the language or whatever it is, be able to follow along or go there. But the objective of the Moreh would be then is to actually break it all the way down to its simple form, and then try to build from there, because if not, they may just never revisit it because they just can't understand it. Okay, anyone else?
Yes, Moreh, one more question. So as we read that Yahuah made us in his image, so it's not just the physical image that he made us, he made us in his image all the way down to the DNA. Would that be a fair assessment? Would you concur with that?
Absolutely not.
That's what I'm learning. That's what I'm hearing.
No. Where are you getting this from? Now I'm with you. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, it's that same level, and that's why I say we really have to go back, and if we can go back to the beginning, like we were talking about in Genesis chapter 2 verse 7, and say, look, did you look at it from that angle? Some people may say no. I said, okay, well, we're going to go back and see how this universe was made, and he created it to be inhabited, as it says in Isaiah. But we got to see that heaven and earth is a witness. Why is it a witness? How does this work? How do we have a relationship with why is well, I'll leave it alone. But my point is that we have a relationship with the heavens and the earth. We have a relationship with the Father. We're supposed to have a relationship with one another. All of this works a certain way, and all laws, there's a universal law that the Father has placed on this earth. Gravity and other things is a law that's just standard, right? So if these laws are standard in the universe, in mankind, then when the Father intervenes, it creates something that's above the standard law that he's already given. This makes this a miracle. This makes this a sign because it goes beyond the regular common law that he's already put on this earth.
Walking on water.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. I mean,
Yeah. So
I feel that it is an absolute beautiful thing if we look at it just from our limited mind and understanding of how powerful and wonderful the Father is, and how all of this creation and everything was created for his glory. I mean, and when everything is working perfectly, how beautiful it is. It's like a beautiful puzzle. And we put all the pieces together, and what our eyes see is something that we could never imagine on the human level. Imagine what is supposed to take place if we just get it right.
Yeah. If we just get it right. But like I said, when we look at certain things, I'm hoping that at some point when we do talk about these things, and like the question you were asking earlier, I may talk about, for example, but we talked about four, like the four proteins and things like that. And I was talking about the four corners of the earth, and I was talk about how Israel was set up and how they were set up north, east, south, west, and how the Father was in the heart of the center of that. I want to maybe tie that into how many parts of the brain you have. 4 parts. How does these 4 parts of the brain work? What does it mean by the frontal lobes and some other things? Well, I don't want to go too far into it. I'm just simply stating that there's so much that we can get from a physical, spiritual, universe. We can see a whole lot of stuff that we can see all of it operates as one. All of it operates as one. But we would really have to, really buckle down and really do some research, but also with it to have all that knowledge and we still act like fools one to another is not going to help none either. What's the whole point of learning all this stuff and we still can't operate with the fundamentals that he wants us to operate in? It's useless.
Yeah, it is. I agree with you. And I'm going to say this and I'm going to let you go. I love human anatomy. So I'm kind of a nerd. Well, I'm a nerd, period, in reference to the human body and how the frontal lobe and all this stuff, how it all works together. So if you need any help, let me know. I would love to help out. But thank you so much, Moreh. I look forward to the future lessons. I'm very excited. Toda.
Oh yeah, no problem at all. Okay. Any other questions? No? All right. Well, if all hearts and minds is clear, it's good on the. Okay. If all hearts and minds are clear, we're standing closed. We'll have Caleb close us out.
Thank you for the lesson. Heavenly Father, Yahuah, thank you for the lesson.
Yeah.
It works now? Yeah. Okay. So, Heavenly Father, thank you for the lesson today. Thank you for the journey that we had here, all of us, that you protect us as we go on about the rest of the week, that we take the lesson and apply it through our lives and make the changes that we need to make, that we will take the food that we're about to receive. We thank you for it. That'll be nourishing to our bodies and give you all praise and honor and glory. In your name and your son, Yahushua, we pray. Amen.
Yeah.